Jude. It is 11:42 right now on a Thursday evening, and look at this. Look at. Oh, actually, you probably don't want to see. You don't want to see the gross sweat, but yeah, we're hot, we're sweaty, and we're doing some power rankings. The final power rankings of the second season of SMBAU edition. All right, it's been a season, everybody. It's been a fantastic season. Every single game was streamed on Twitch, which is pretty exciting. Playoffs happening tomorrow as of recording this, so thought we'd do one last look at the season, how it all went down, and then afterwards, after we go over all the teams, we're going to create the All-State team. So the All-Queensland Division team, the All-Victoria Division team, and the All-WA team, and try and figure out which of those three is the best. But first things first, the final power rankings, and I guess, the final time we get to talk about these teams in their iteration before we head into the offseason. So let's go straight into number 12. They're red because they're an F tier. My bottom place team, the Crowns. That 11-17 record was really disappointing for a team that was looking so good at the halfway point. I believe at the halfway point of this, they were 9-5. At one stage, they got to 10-5. They were looking great. This team was fantastic, and they were going to do well. But unfortunately, they happened upon the mother of all loss streaks. 9 losses in a row. They didn't win a game against Haunts, but then they lose another 3 right after that. It really pitiful performance from the Crowns in that regards. And their bats weren't even that terrible. I mean, they got hits in, I believe, every single one of their last 7 games. They got a run, right? So they were still scoring, but they were also letting up a lot of runs. I mean, in the final 8 games alone, they had a negative run differential of 13 just in those games. Their only win at the end was against Haunts, which, as we'll discuss later, isn't really the biggest win in the world you can get. Aiden Mackey, who had a fantastic start of the season, kind of carried his numbers through. Tied for 3rd in home runs, tied for 4th in RBIs, tied for 3rd in extra base hits. Like, he was up there. I mean, 13 RBIs is not a small number, but that was all from the first half of the season. Come second half of the season, nothing from Aiden Mackey, nothing from the Crowns. So let's just move on with this disappointment of a team. Biggest disappointment in the league, biggest choke job, pitiful showing from the Crowns. Maybe next season they can bring it back together. But on to number 11 and our other F-tier team, because there are 2 teams in F-tier, Ocean Song. 8-20 record, 3 less wins than the Crowns, but I still have them. Oh, sorry, I want to move this so I can see it better. Actually, no, I should move this one so I can see it better. There we go. It's the same mistake I do every time. But all right, yeah, Ocean Song. So where to begin with Ocean Song this season? I mean, they just had some rough loss streaks, and they were never really a threat. They never really had that same magic of just being able to win games like we saw last season. I mean, this final stretch, they kind of had a chance to play spoiler for a lot of teams and failed in every single one of them. They beat the Crowns, 4-1. That's wow. So that's something, I guess. Also, they got a win over Night Fury at the last game of the season, 1-0, and there was literally nothing on the line. So it's really hard to, rate these guys, I guess. They're kind of blah. I think that's a way to describe them. It's just kind of bleh. But it's not like they didn't have some, names. Like Sierra Aiken had a pretty good job, a .476 on base percentage, 8th best in the league. That's not bad. Harmony Rossi, under 3 ERA, 2.93, 9th in the league. Again, not bad pitching-wise. Jose Bonavente still got 20 strikeouts. That was, tied for second most. So the pitching still is there, and that's something they were known for last season. But as a whole this season, this team, they did nothing to adapt and failed. I think that's to describe it. If the Crowns are a disappointment, Ocean Song, they just failed to adapt, and they got left behind, I think is the best way to put it. So hopefully in the offseason, they can find ways to adapt, picked up a bit more firepower, a bit more on the batting side of things, and maybe they can come together and be a contention. Because the pitching's good. It's just the batting that needs to catch up. So we'll see. We'll see if it comes together. But those are the F-tier teams. Bottom 2 teams in the league, without a doubt. So let's go to our 1D tier. And our 1D tier is, of course, the team with so many pitchers. It's Mandalore. Mandalore sitting in D tier. Mandalore actually finished the season quite strong. They turned it around. They're showing the promise and why they're just a couple more batters away from being a super strong team. The core of Bruce Von Wolf and Bern Bullock in the lineup will win you games. I mean, Bruce Von Wolf, 5 home runs throughout the season, was pretty good. Not quite the same numbers as last season, but still up there. Bern Bullock, though, 7 home runs tied for first, 8 extra base hits tied for third, 13 runs tied for second. He was an offensive force for Mandalore and really kept them in games. And when you look at the pitching, they never, like this last week, like these last 8 games, they never allowed more than 2 runs against them, which should be winning you. I would have to think a lot of these games if your hitting is on point, but the hitting was just not on point. It never really came through to them. So, look, they swept the Crowns in the end. That's pretty good. They got to win over the Counter-Strikers 5-1. That's pretty up there. But they ended the season with 2 tough losses to Haunts, which really could have dragged them out of last place in WA. Could have got them ahead of the Crowns, which I believe they deserve to be in. A season what could have been if they had just, had some batters. Because I looked at their stats. A couple of their pitchers never even played. All right, they had 2 pitchers who never even saw the field. So, too many pitchers, not enough batters. Fix that up. Let's get out of detail. Let's get to the teams that were actually contenders this year. Starting at number 9, Shockwave, 12-16 record. Look, that loss streak in week 3 really hurt them. So it's hard for me to kind of believe in this team. But that said, they had some quality wins this last week. Like they had some really quality wins. Beat the Redliners back-to-back. So 2 wins over the Redliners, got a win over Night Fury, got a win over Sky Fracture, got a win over Wild Roddy. Like, these are all teams that are going to be, put higher than them on the power rankings. But it's just hard for me to overlook the fact that they got clean swept. They didn't win a single game in week 3. So it's like, what do you do with that? I think had they just won a couple games back then, this team would have been in the thick of the playoff hunt and maybe pulling off those upsets. Who knows? But instead, they've kind of gutted their roster. They're looking ahead to next season. Some standout performers at the end that, are still on the team, I suppose, when we get to the end. Heel Blackwell, .256 opponent's batting average as a pitcher, 8th best in the league. Leela Bango, a .273 opponent's batting average, 10th best in the league. Like each of them, solid starting pitchers. They have batters consistently getting points. They were not shut out in the final 8 games of the season. So they have the pitching, they have the batting. They just need the consistency, and I think they'll be up there. So Shockwave are, again, they're on the cusp of being a team to make a playoff run. So keep your eyes on them. I mean, at one point they were 5th in the power rankings. So, there's a reason for that. Shockwave they're no slouches. Up next, though, Haunts from WA, kind of snaking that 8th spot away from them. And, I mean, look, the story of Haunts was a slow start. When they started to get hot, it was too little, too late. Never really got themselves back in a viable playoff contention. But, I mean, their bats are good. They have a nice 3-piece in bats. Jordan Rosas, Eric McDowell, and Royce Jones, all strong battles. I mean, Royce Jones, king of getting doubles this season. Jordan Rosas, .472 batting average, .500 on base percentage, 5th and 6th in the league. Eric McDowell still had a .429 batting average up there at number 10. So they were getting hits and they were scoring points. They were getting hits regularly. They never really had any big blowouts, actually, these final games. And they lost to the Crowns, and that's a big L to take. Losing to the Crowns is not great, but they, ended the season strong, 3 wins in a row. Crowns, Mandalore, pretty good. Also beat Ocean Song. So they didn't really beat any tough opponents at the end, which maybe inflated them a bit. It's kind of why they're sitting at 8th and not higher, and why they're still in C tier. But, hey, they have some strong players. If they can get their consistency similar to Shockwave, this team could be a threat. So keep your eyes on Haunts. I think they're going to be one of the teams that could bounce back next season. But now, we're just flying right along because there's a lot to cover. We're going straight into B tier. And an ode to the teams that were in the playoff running and for whatever reason couldn't piece it together in the end, starting with Sky Fracture. 14-14 season. By the end, they put themselves in a rough spot. They were sitting, I believe it was 10-13, thinking if we win out and get some, run differentials in our favor, maybe something can happen. But the start of the week is what killed them. They had a series against the Wild Roddy Pack where they just got blitzed 1-9 and then shut out in the second game. And that's kind of when Sky Fracture fell apart and never really came back in it. And it's a bit of a shame because this roster I thought was going to be unbeatable. I thought they were just going to be consistent, win, 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 win. Instead, they were very mid. And the team kind of abandoned ship a little bit earlier than I expected as well. The big one, Luka Chambers, gone from Sky Fracture. So that's going to be an interesting free agent signing. We'll see where that one goes. But, the team still has Ezra Flubiol, one of the better hitters in the league. 19 hits, tied for 5th. 8 extra base hits, tied for 3rd. So definitely super strong. Magnus Longbottom, a fairly consistent strikeout pitcher as well. Was able to hit 17, tied for 8th in the league. So that's good signs. They also got a couple big wins, like a win over Garglers, a win over Gamblin, to kind of finish it out after they had started to get their roster. So this team... Again, there are hints of a good team underneath this all. They just got to piece it all together. And I think gutting some of their higher paid players that were underperforming might be the right go. So Sky Fracture could be, again, another one of the teams that could bounce back next season and be a threat. It's all dependent on the offseason moves. We'll see what they do. But dead even right there. Not quite able to get it. Our next B-tier team, which, you want to talk about blowing a good chance. Number 6 on my power rankings, Gamblin. They were in such a good spot to get into the postseason. They were there. All right, they had just come off of week 3, winning 4 games in a row, beating the Counter Strikers, beating Ocean Song back to back. In fact, they even started this week with a win over the Crowns. Bing, bang, boom, easy done. But when the pressure was on, this team folded, unfortunately. And if I'm going somewhere, I'm going to the pitching as to what kind of fell apart for them. They allowed 5 runs in each of their last 3 games, and that's not going to cut it, even though they got a win over Night Fury, that 8-5 game. But when the playoffs are on the line and you got to shut your opponents out, that's not how you get it done at all. The pitching just fell apart on these guys at the end, which was really unfortunate for them because, there's a mosquito just in front of me. But, yeah, which is really unfortunate for them because, their batting was super strong. Atticus Kelly, just topping, in top 10 in all the charts, right? Batting average 6, home runs 3rd, RBI tied for 1st, on base percentage 7th, hits 2nd, runs 5th. Atticus Kelly was an actual machine, and Bailey Freeman came alive as a power hitter towards the end. Just 1st in home runs, 1st in RBIs, 1st in extra base hits, tied for the first 2, 11th in runs as well. Genesis Sosa, according to the game, MVP. 2nd in ERA, 4th in WHIP, 5th in on-base percentage, tied for 4th in strikeouts. Absolutely a pitching powerhouse. Gray Gomez as well, a nice second starting pitcher to get them wins. 6th in ERA, 6th in WHIP, 6th in opponents' on-base percentage, tied for 4th with the 18 strikeouts with Genesis Sosa, funnily enough. This team was strong, and they just couldn't close. They couldn't get it in the clutch, and I'm looking at, that loss against the Redliners 1-3, the loss against Night Fury 0-5, that could have secured them that spot, and they just had nothing coming from the batting. Losing to Sky Fracture 1-5 as well, in that last week, was pretty bad. It was there for the taking, and the Gamblin couldn't take it. They rolled snake eyes. They're out. Sorry, Gamblin, you're 6th. And as we continue with teams that kind of choked it all away, number 5, kind of getting that one spot away. The Redliners. So close. So close. This team, if they had just won one of those, 2 of those final 3 games, and they won one of them. They beat Ocean Song 3-1, but it was Wild Roddy up 3-0, 2 outs, bottom of the final inning, and then Wild Roddy got hot, and the Redliners fell apart. But that's okay. Bounce back, beat the Counter Strikers, pitching on point, only allowed 1 run, and then the bats went cold. Just like that, 2 one-run games, 1 a complete choke in the bottom of the 3rd, and that's it. Redliners don't get into the playoffs. A bit brutal for a team that earlier, in the week also beat Wild Roddy 9-0 to kind of choke that one out. It was rough. And, it's a little bit disappointing because I was keen to see players like Bro Ray, Ryan Peralta, Nico Platoon, Bianca Singleton, all in, those playoffs. These 4 players, absolutely insane. And let's talk about Bro Ray, all right? 1st in batting average, 1st in on-base percentage, 1st in hits, tied for 3rd in extra base hits, 11 runs scored as well, tied for 6th. Bro Ray was by far the most efficient batter of the season, and is currently setting the current single-season records for the batting average, on-base percentage, and hits. So something to be mindful of looking forward. Ryan Peralta, a good backup to it, 5 home runs, that power hitter, 13 RBIs. Pitching-wise, Nico Platoon, 3rd in the league in ERA, tied for 9th in WHIP. Tied, I believe, no, solo seventh, sorry, on opponent's batting average, so he was super strong. Bianco Singleton as well, 18 strikeouts, tied for fourth in the league, had a really low opponent's on base percentage as well, I believe ninth overall. Like, this team was strong. They had the parts, but in the clutch, in the choke, well, they couldn't do it, and thus they're gone. So let's go to our top four, and let's go to our playoff teams. Number 4, and a team I'm predicting to lose in the semifinals, Wild Roddy, 19-9. Don't let that record fool you. This team has holes in it, and they are big and glaring, and it is the pitching. None of their starting pitchers have an ERA of under 5. They're all 5+. Like, the pitching on this team has been disastrous, especially this last week. They allowed 29 runs over the course of 7 games, the most in the league by far, including a big blowout against Nine Fury where they lost 0-12, then followed that by a big blowout against the Redliners where they lost 0-9. Now, they had already pretty much secured the conference by this point because they had such a strong start, big early winning streaks. But this team just, it's not there pitching-wise. The pitching is a big point of concern. That said, the batting, well, that's been pretty solid, all right? Lawson Nofak, 4th in the league in batting average, 4th in on-base percentage, 19 hits to their name as well, tied for 5th, so they have been up to the plate. Alonso Ventura sitting on 13 RBIs, Pat Barnett sitting on 13 runs, Reese Hill with 11 runs as well. So this team scores, but they get scored against, and when you get hot against them, you just put on the points. So we'll be curious to see how this team looks come postseason, if they can, like, get back that hot magic that had them as, like, a top team earlier in the season. But I mean, the starting pitching is bad. And the problem is there's not a lot of rest time in between those playoff games. So, like, these relievers, they're going to be put under the pump. They're going to have to rely on their starting pitchers. Very unlikely we see Wild Roddy, I think, go the distance. They're the 4th least likely team to do it, and number 4 in my power rankings. Number 3. We are now in the A tier. The Garglers. That's right. I have them at number 3. And we'll get more into that later. But, look, Garglers got the job done. I didn't believe in them, and they got through. They had to win out. They had to get some luck as well with some teams losing some key games, and everything fell in line for the Garglers. And they did themselves, all the favors. They did themselves no favors earlier when they lost to the Redliners. Like, I thought that was it. They were done with that loss to the Redliners. They followed up with the loss to Sky Fracture. It was looking like this team was kind of toasted. But, they had a pretty soft end of the year. Hans, Ocean Song. They won the games they had to. They got the breaks they needed to. They came through. And this team has star power, so let's not overlook that. Golder Turner, one of the best players in the league, definitely leading the charge in that regards. 4.39 batting average, 8th in the league, 10th in on-base percentage, 1st in runs at 14, so that's pretty impressive. Filament Zoner as well, 13 RBIs coming through, pretty solid. Pitching-wise, Dan Reef-Giller and Julia Greer, a great 1-2 combo. Between the two of them, they each were just really tough to hit against, but the interesting thing about this team and the big question mark, they picked up Pipa Lara from Hans going into these playoffs. 5 home runs already to Pipa Lara, 19-year-old, so a big future ahead of her. Tied for 3rd in the league. Could be a difference maker on this team, so look out. Look out for the Garglers. But I have them 3rd because the big thing, when I compared them to the number 2 team, well, the number 2 team did beat them 3 out of 4 times, all right? Because number 2 is the Night Fury. Top team in Queensland. Interesting end to the season. And I think my own attitude might be painting a bad picture of how strong these guys may have been looking. Because they're coming in that last week. They had a positive run differential of 14. And they were putting up some pretty big numbers. Like 12 against Wild Roddy obviously helps. But then 5 against Gamblin in both the games there. Got some wins over Wild Roddy, a win over Sky Fracture. They did lose to Ocean Song that last game of the season, which could be a point of concern. All right, I'm not saying that's great. But overall, the team has been winning more than losing and winning consistently. I think they've been, record-wise, the most consistent team in the league. Every single week, 4-3, 4-3, 4-3. So have that going for them. Also, batting-wise, like, look, Caden Plaintiff, Definitely the carrying force on this one. Second in the league in batting average, 14th in RBI, tied for first there. 5.68 on-base percentage, pretty great second. 21 hits, fourth in the league. Kelvin Smacks, although hasn't been as strong as he was in Season 1, still has 6 stolen bases and kind of won the stolen base race, most stolen bases in the league. Pitching-wise, Hassan Sesame, bit of a surprise, lower on the rotation, but 2.6 ERA, 7th overall. But the big one has been Jasmine Porkman, not Bryson Hurls. 2.04 ERA, 4th in the league, 0.85 whip, 3rd in the league, 2.15 on base percentage, that's 4th in the league, 20 strikeouts, tied for 2nd. Jasmine Porkman had a silent killer of a season, and really has been a big part of the consistency. In a big game against Gamblin, that Gamblin was must win, it was against Jasmine Porkman, shut them out. So, pretty big performance from the Night Fury. They're at second place. I have them going over the Wild Roddy and going to the final, where they will lose to our number 1 team. Come on. We all know who it is. It's the Counter-Strikers. They're still the top. Was it the most convincing last week for them? Not really. They lost to the Garglers, actually, who they're going to have to play against. That's a bit concerning. Also lost to Mandalore as well. So that's not great. In both those games, they gave up 5 runs. But when they're not giving up 5 runs, they're shutting their opponents out. They're still the king of winning 1-0. They did that twice, both against the Mandalore as well as the Redliners. They finished with 2 very solid wins over the Crowns. This team, incredibly dangerous because of how explosive they can be at a moment's notice and how lights out their pitching can be. And they have put all the money into trying to get there. Eastman Barnes, big signing pickup, $26 million. For the closer that they feel they need. So look out for this team. Now, Jamie Drader as well, pretty much 3rd in every single relevant hitting stats, that 5.45 on base and 5.24 batting average, 22 hits, just scary. Whistle Hutchinson, not really the big power hitter to back them up. This team isn't really up there in the home runs. They're just consistent hitting, but Whistle Hutchinson right behind him. Braden Keith, strong as well. Like this trio, incredibly scary. Pitching-wise, Dana Rehan and Adam Bland might be the best 1-2 combo in the league, with Dana Rehan probably the best pitcher this season, 1st in ERA, 2nd in whip, 2nd in on-base percentage, on-base average, I should say, which is insane. It's a whip under 1, which is insane. Also 29 strikeouts as well, 1st in the league. So good job, Dana Rehan. Easily the best starting pitcher, it felt like. And then, yeah, Adam Bland as well, like 6th in ERA, 7th in whip, 3rd in opponent's batting average, 18 strikeouts, tied for 4th. Dunk Undermeyer as well. An incredibly low whip, tied for 9th, I think. Like this team, the pitching is strong. The batting is strong. They have no weakness to their game. So to lose, to beat them in a series, I just don't know how it can be done. So I do worry for the Garglers in their matchup. We'll see. People are hyped for that pizza party. We'll see how it plays out. But, yep, those are the power rankings. So, again, final power rankings of the seasons. Crowns at 12, Ocean Song 11, Mandalore 10, Shockwave 9, Haunts 8, Skyfracture 7, Gamblin 6, Redliners 5, Wild Roddy 4, Garglers 3, Night Fury 2, and the Counter-Strikers at number 1, which means my pick in the finals, Counter-Strikers win it 3-0. I think they're sweeping I think they'll go 3-1 against the Garglers, 3-0 against Night Fury, who will get past Wild Roddy 3-2. That's my prediction, so, yeah. Counter-Strikers over Garglers 3-1. Night Fury over Wild Roddy 3-2. And then Counter-Strikers over Night Fury 3-0 sweep, easy pickings. My prediction. But we'll see how it plays out. Now, we're going to cut to a different screen because here we go. It's now time to hint at what's to come. So see this thing right here? We're going to be filling this with the all-star teams. That's going to be happening on the pre-show. The finals are going to be starting 5:30 Queensland tomorrow, and then we will be opening up with naming our all-star teams. So our Queensland all-star team, our Victoria all-star team, and our WA all-star team. The 3 of them will all be kind of named, and then we'll have the all-star team where we kind of take the best from each state and blop them together. So that's what we're going to be filling out tomorrow. That's the sneak preview. I know it looks terrible, but there's a reason for it. And that video also will probably be uploaded to YouTube then. So that will do it. Awesome. I never explained what this was at the start. That's okay. We're going to have fun tomorrow. Check it.